because that is not going to change the plight, the disdain and the problems and the poverty of the ordinary people and throughout this region. It is an illusion to think. Look what is happening today in Iran. This is a government, this is a country that has plenty of oil, with also nearly 80+ million people. But more than half of the Iranian people are in strict poverty. Why is that? But you have a religious now, you have a regime that presumably is behaving and acting on behalf of the Almighty God. And if this is, so everything they do and work and with their own people, they have absolutely no hesitation to shoot, to kill, to imprison, to torture, to do whatever it takes, because from their perspective, God is ordained, that God will give them the permission to do what they need to do. So we have a concern in this respect, that is, if your political ideology is a religiously based ideology, then in fact you can do anything in the name of God, in the name of religion. There is no check and balance left. So I am not against a person to be a religious person or have the right to vote as a religious person. My concern about whether that is in Egypt or in Jordan, where there is a similar phenomena, and certainly every single Arab state, is that if you don't give secular parties an opportunity to organize themselves, develop their political platform, given the right to campaign, given first the right to regroup. But at the same time, if this is going to succeed, I would start yesterday in Egypt to begin massive economic reforms. Now, many of you will quickly ask, okay, where the money is going to come from? Well, certainly it's going to, now remember this now, economic reform is going to take money. Now, this Egyptian military has been spending, I think, something to the tune of 9 or 10 billion, that's with B, dollar a year on building the military. And as a matter of fact, it's become one of the most powerful, 10th largest military in the world in terms of size, quite sophisticated because of the modern equipment they have been able to acquire from the United States. Very well trained, because many American trainers actually, and the relationship between the Egyptian military and the American and the Pentagon is very, very close, and it's been very good from day one, from going back to Anwar Sadat when he expelled the Russian and made a move toward the United States, and going back more than 34, 35 years ago. And actually, not more than that, 1970s. So this is what you have today. The question for us then, it is not whether we should go to political reform, it's how do you go about it in order to make three things happen at a minimum as a result of this evolutionary process. Number one, you want to have it attached to serious economic development that can take place, that can produce jobs, produce money, produce wealth, produce opportunities. And that has to be a prerequisite to any reforms you attempt to undertake. Two, you must allow parties, other parties, any party, to regroup, to organize, to establish their political agenda, to be able to talk about it, write about it, promote it, in order to attract support from the public. That's going to take time. You cannot do that in a month or two. It's impossible. Or even 6 months for that matter. And three, you have from day one to secure basic human rights. That is, with reform or not, without the right to vote tomorrow or not right to vote, basic human rights. Because whether an Egyptian one, give me some health care, give me some education, give me some food first. So adhere. That is, human right, you know, by and large is divine. What is the human? What is the person's right by birth? Is it only to live free, or a baby has a right, inherent right to food and clothing and shelter? That is really the concept. I mean, we have to begin to change our thinking in terms of when we produce a baby, when a parent produces a baby, do they have a responsibility to raise that baby, to provide them with the basic needs, what we call the basic needs? Is that part of the individual's rights? I submit to you, it is. But who is adhering to that? That is, for the United States, State Department, or any other country to speak about, we have to move toward political. I have yet to hear once from the President or the Secretary of State saying political reform has to be in conjunction with immediately with some kind of economic reform to create jobs, to create opportunity, to create wealth. And instead of saying to the Egyptian military, we will not give you the money, or what, now they're still going to continue to give $1 billion, $1 billion, $1 billion for military assistance. I will either squeeze a few $100 million more or reduce that by a couple of hundred and devote $500 million to economic development. You might say, well, $500 million economic development in a country of 80 million, what does that mean? It's pittance, it's nothing. Well, I will have to disagree with you, because it depends what you do with this kind of money. What $1,000 in fact can do to a community of 100 people, for that matter. That is, without elaborating extensively on the concept of sustainable development, the whole idea of sustainable development is creating projects, simple projects in thousands and thousands of communities. Each project may not cost more than a couple $1,000s, that will provide an opportunity for the communities to come in together, what we call through participatory development, decide on their own project, tiny, whether planting trees or building a park or paving this or chicken coop or any smaller project that can produce actually wealth in no time, literally in months. It's doable. It can be done. Specifically in Egypt, along the Nile Delta, throughout, where most of the population actually exists because they need to be close to the river, where there is fertile land, where they can be utilized far more than ever before. $500 million allocated to sustainable development could create millions and millions of jobs over a period of few months. There's a tremendous global expertise in this field, to a point where you can go to get 5, 6 villages, head of the villages, and tell them, okay, what it is that you want, what it is that you need in order to build your community. And they will decide what they want. You provide them with the basic minimum money that is required for that, and with the kind of direction that they need. And this kind of expertise exists all over the world. There are scores of American, European agencies, institutions that actually provide that kind of direction and help to communities if they seek it. Which means, as the government begin to develop the necessary political reform to move toward election, the people are being fed, being clothed, being taken care of. At least they begin to see a process of improvement in their day-to-day life. Because the truth of the matter is, what's the point if I can go and vote tomorrow, but then I go back home and I'm sleeping on the floor, on the dust, I have nothing to eat, and I have no light, no electricity, and filthy, dirty water, and the sewage is running throughout all around me. That is the reality. So here, whereas the United States, or any other country for that matter, does not have the right to intervene in the internal affairs of any other country, but a country that is seeking American help, militarily in this case speaking, like the Egyptian, and some economic help, we have to sit down and say to them, yes, You need to go to political reform. Political reform are necessary, but let us do it in a manner so that it will be sustained. Now, how you make it sustained? You have to give it enough time to evolve. And I'm not talking about years, 10 years or 15 years. I'm talking about a minimum, say about a year and a half to 2 years. You need that time to begin the kind of process we are talking about. And this process, what the process will produce. That is, if you try to understand the concept of how a person develops the sense of participation, participatory development, both politically and economically, what do you do? How do you go, in fact, about it?